Hi, I'm Mr. Hutchings, and welcome to Mr. Hutchings History. Today's topic is 5.7 of the AP World History program, Economic Developments and Innovations from 1750 to 1900. Our AP themes will be economic systems, governance, and cultural developments and interactions. Our historical reasoning skills will be causation and continuity and change over time. By the late 19th century, industrialization had done more than introduce machines. It had new ways of thinking about money, risk, work, and consumption. Factories needed capital. Railroads needed investors. Trade needed banks. And mass production needed mass buyers. This episode asks a final, unifying question for Unit 5. How did new economic ideas, institutions, and business structures reshaped the world between 1750 and 1900. For centuries, European economies were guided by mercantilism. Governments tightly controlled trade, protected domestic industries, and sought to accumulate gold and silver. Industrialization challenged this system. The Wealth of Nations, published in 1776, author Adam Smith argued that humans are naturally inclined to trade and bargain. He criticized heavy state control and promoted laissez-faire capitalism, an economic philosophy that encouraged minimal government interference in commerce. Smith believed that private entrepreneurship and market competition would increase productivity and wealth. These ideas shaped not only economics, but politics. Governments reduced tariffs, encouraged private investment, and allowed markets to expand. This reflects causation. New economic theories emerged in response to industrial needs and then reshaped state policy. Why would industrial societies favor laissez faire ideas over mercantilism? Because industrial growth required flexibility, it required private investment, and it required large scale risk taking, which heavy government control often restricted. Industrial projects were expensive and risky. No single merchant could easily fund railroads, fund steel mills, or create shipping fleets. The solution was the corporation. A corporation was a government chartered legal entity owned by stockholders, individuals who purchased shares. Investors could earn dividends when companies made profits, but their losses were limited to what they invested, a principle known as limited liability. This innovation transformed capitalism. By spreading risk, corporations made large scale investment attractive. Factories expanded, railroads multiplied, and global trade intensified. Corporations also had judicial personality. A corporation could own property, make contracts, and exist beyond the lifespan of their founders. This represents continuity and change. Profit seeking continued, but the scale and structure of business changed dramatically. As corporations grew, some became so powerful that they eliminated competition and formed monopolies. In Germany, Alfred Krupp used the Bessemer process to dominate steel production. In the United States, John D. Rockefeller built a monopoly in the oil industry. These firms controlled prices, controlled supply, and controlled labor conditions. Supporters argued monopolies increased efficiency. Critics warned they concentrated wealth and power dangerously. This tension highlights the theme of governance. Governments now face the challenge of regulating powerful economic actors without stifling economic growth. Why would monopolies worry governments and workers alike? because monopolies can control markets, suppress wages, and influence politics, reducing competition and reducing accountability. Industrial capitalism quickly crossed national borders. Transnational companies operated across multiple countries, extracting resources, manufacturing goods, and managing finance on a global scale. The Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, HSBC, founded in 1865, financed trade and investment across Asia and beyond. Unilever, a British Dutch corporation, produced consumer goods such as soap using palm oil sourced from British West Africa and later the Belgian Congo. These firms gained wealth and influence unmatched in earlier eras. Transnational corporations linked industrial economies to imperial systems, reinforcing global inequality. Raw materials flowed from colonies, profits accumulated in industrial centers. How did transnational corporations benefit from empire? Empires guaranteed access to cheap labor, access to raw materials, and protected markets, lowering costs and increasing profits. Industrial capitalism also required new financial institutions. Banks multiplied as entrepreneurs needed safe places to deposit money and reliable sources of loans. Insurance reduced risk, especially marine insurance, which protected ships and cargo. Lloyd's of London, which began in a coffee house where merchants shared shipping news, became a cornerstone of the global insurance industry. These institutions made global trade more predictable and encouraged further investment. Finance, not just factories, powered industrial growth. Industrial production created abundance, but abundance required buyers. As goods became cheaper and more available, a culture of consumerism developed among working and middle classes, especially in Britain. Advertising expanded. Disposable income increased for some. Leisure activities became commercialized. Sports, such as football in Europe and baseball in the United States, grew rapidly. Cycling became popular after the invention of the safety bicycle, which replaced the dangerous penny farthing and chain driven design of earlier bikes. Public parks, music halls, and sporting events brought different social classes together, sometimes to promote respectable behavior, sometimes simply to sell entertainment. This connects economic change to cultural developments. Why would industrial societies promote leisure in consumer culture? Because consumption sustained production. Leisure also provided escape from harsh working conditions and reinforced social norms. While living standards rose for some, industrial capitalism deepened inequality. Corporations gained enormous power. Workers often faced long hours, low wages, and unsafe conditions. Colonized people supplied labor and resources, but received few benefits. Economic innovation created growth, but also dependency and exploitation. This tension would soon spark labor movements, reform efforts, and new political ideologies in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Topic 5.7 shows that industrialization reshaped not only production, but economic organization itself. This topic reinforces causation, how new ideas and institutions emerged from industrial needs. Continuity and change. Profit motives continued, structures transformed. And theme integration across economy, governance, and culture. This unit also prepares students to understand later debates over capitalism, regulation, imperialism, and globalization. By 1900, the world economy had become deeply interconnected. Corporations spanned continents, banks managed risk, consumers fueled production. But wealth and power concentrated unevenly. Economic systems are not neutral. They reflect choices, and they produce consequences. Who benefits most from economic innovation, and who bears the cost? Historically, owners and investors benefit first, while workers and colonies often absorb the risks. Over time, societies debate how to rebalance that system. I'm Mr. Hutchings, and this is Mr. Hutchings History. I'd like to thank you for joining me for this episode. And as always, continue to study history. It matters.